Good morning, Sonder fam. It is so great to be with you here on a Sunday morning. It's definitely cool here in Colorado. Um, I think it's probably only about 50 degrees or so outside. So I don't know, what is it? I was just going to look and see. Yep, 54. And I know some of you are still having it still a little warm for you, but I'm definitely feeling the um, fall vibes. I noticed someone had mentioned signing into Zoom. So there are some new settings in Zoom when you join a social. You do have to be logged into your Zoom account. So make sure that you can set up a Zoom account. It's free. Make sure that you're logged into Zoom when you log into these events. That really helps us keep down the some of the odd spammers and Zoom bombers that tend to like to show up. So being an actual signed in verified person, but just know that that sometimes gives a little hiccup. So sometimes it takes a few minutes to get signed in. So just to let you know about that. I've got my little autumn affirmations here. I don't know, Jen and I were talking. Jennifer Ogilvy is here from Texas. She said it's a little warm. She's helping me here in the chat. She's my co-facilitator, so she can help you with any questions you have there. But we were talking about our little autumn affirmations, and she definitely liked the "I will thrift with the focus of a squirrel storing acorns." So definitely a super fun idea. So the other thing I wanted to make sure to know for you to know is to set that chat to everyone. That little blue box down in the bottom tends to, especially if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, it tends to switch back to host and panelist. So if you notice that you've typed something in there, you have a question or you're looking for some advice and nobody's answering you, it's very possible that it's flipped back to that. And then the only people that will see it are myself and Jen, which if you only want us to see it, that's fine. But just know that it has a way to do that. Corey, I'm so glad you enjoyed the Opalite song opener. I was really interested hearing Taylor Swift interview. She was kind of talking about that song. And of course, you know, her honey's birthstone is opal, but she was also talking about the idea of opalite is a man-made stone. It's a man-made opal, or I guess I should say human made, or right, you know, to be inclusive there. But she liked the idea of an opalite is an artificial, but it's you self-made, people made stone. And so she said kind of like happiness is kind of, yeah, lab created, thank you, Corey. But kind of like how we make our own happiness, right? We make our own joy, and we're responsible for that. So the idea that this beautiful stone could be lab created is also kind of a little analogy to us making our own happiness. So super fun there. So just a few little other community guidelines, just wanting to make sure that this is a safe and secure space. We're making sure that we're kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. We limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's always great to ask about stickers and markers. A really good place to do that is in Sonder Club. You can ask, and then people can do links and those kinds of things. Hey, Leanne, I'm glad you. It is early for you, though. She says she's saying she woke up in time. I know she was late to yesterday's, so I'm glad you're here today, Leanne. Any of those customer care inquiries all go to hello@silkandsonder.com. Jen and I don't have access to your account, so we can't fix like billing issues or shipping, those kinds of things. So all of those go to hello@silkandsonder.com. And then ultimately, remember, these socials really are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but ultimately you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So if there's ever anything that you're working on that's not quite your jam, feel free to do something else. If the music I'm playing isn't your jam, you can mute that. If my voice isn't your jam, you can mute me. We have closed captioning enabled. So really, this is your time. And I always want to stress, this is your hour. This is your time to kind of set up your week, and you do what you need to do for you. And sometimes people are like, you know what, I thought I'd be up for working on my week, but I'm not really up for it. And I'm just going to go. And it's like, you can do what you need to do, right? Again, this is your time. And we're so glad that you're taking some time to be with us. So I did want to mention, Jen, oops, did I put, oh, there it is. I put it in the wrong spot. Jen did put in the chat that Bailey, one of our other facilitators, is having a Nashville meetup. I think that's November 1st, and she put the details in there for that. So if you're in the area, that would be super fun to go to. I mixed up my slides here, but this month we were talking about resilience, right? And I liked this quote that said, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And I think that's a great way to think of things and think of this idea of resilience. That's kind of how I think of it is things are going to happen, right? And they do change us, right? What happens, our experiences, what we go through, what we grow from what we learn. And so I can be changed by it, but I refuse to be reduced by it. And that really is how I think of resilience. So speaking of things that happen and how they change us, there is this exclusive event with Meha, our founder, and she has an expert coming in for that on October 23rd. There is a small charge for this because it is one of the kind of extra exclusive events. So just know that that's there. Also, if you sign up for it, but you can't make it, they will send you a recording. Also, if you are a member of our Life Map, the online coaching program, you will get that later in your vault. You don't get to it. It doesn't include it attending live, but it will give you the recording in the vault. So just know that that is there as well. So that's kind of an interesting idea of thinking about. I think it works really well with resilience, right? Like how our early experiences shape us and how we with this quote, right, we're not going to be reduced by it, but it can change us and how we can move forward. So as we jump into this morning, we are going to be working on our weekly setup. I think this is week 42. I was with Jen yesterday morning when she did the setup, and we were all shocked to know this was week 42. We got 10 weeks left of the year, which is plenty of time to do the things that you want to do, right? So we're going to do our resilience mind map, which just know that that is exclusive to our weekly setups. So it's not going to be in your journal. It's just something we do a little bit extra. We're going to do our rosebud thorn activity, which is over on page 36. And then we are going to do our weekly setup pages on page 40 and 41. So I always like to use these two little cartoons just to kind of illustrate a couple of points. The one with the little pile of kittens says there's room for you here just as you are. So no matter where you are, what things are happening in your life, maybe things are going great, maybe things are a lot of things to celebrate. We love to celebrate with our Sonder fam, but we know that life isn't always a series of ups. Sometimes we have those downs, and so we're here for you for that as well. And it's good for you to show up. Sometimes it's nice just to hear other people empathizing with you, saying, yep, I've been there, right? That totally sucks. But we're here for you. So no matter good, bad, we're here for all of the feels. And speaking of feelings, the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy. So no one can tell you, oh, you shouldn't be mad about that, or you should be happy for this, right? Our feelings are what they are. And we're here for it, right? We're here to kind of feel that and to work through all of that and to grow as we learn more about ourselves. So we're going to do this resilience mind map. If you've been with us all month, this is going to be week 3. If you're new, don't worry. You can catch up if you want to, but you don't have to, right? I always tell people, like, you don't have to catch up. You don't have to do the past stuff. Just start right now. And we've been really kind of exploring the quiet yet powerful strength that lives within all of us. Sometimes we think that resilience is the ability to bounce back, but it's really much more than that. It's the inner anchor that keeps you steady in a storm, the wisdom you gain from past challenges, and the light you carry that can also illuminate the path for others. And I love that part, right? Because a lot of times what we're going through, when we share that, others can learn from that. And I think that is such a powerful piece of being together in community. So our weekly prompts are going to guide you to look at resilience, not as a destination, but as a dynamic practice. So again, this is week 3. If you want to take screenshots, that's the other thing I always emphasize to folks, take some screenshots or pictures of the screen. If you want to go back to the slides, we do record this and the recording will be up, and they've been really good about getting the recordings up really fast. The one that Jen and I did yesterday is already there for the weekly setup. So they've been working on getting those right up. So this is week 3. And the question that we're asking you is, what inner resources or gifts do I tap into when I need momentum? And I think that's a really good idea and thought to move us forward. And Jen is popping in some of the week 1 and week 2 in there as well in the chat. So a couple different ways you can kind of look at this as you're writing this up. You can maybe do a reflection. So thinking about in tough seasons, it's not always grit that carries us. It might be joy or connection. Maybe it's purpose or creativity. What powers you forward? What is it that maybe it's your touchstone. It's the thing that you hold on to that helps you continue to move forward. And then you can also think about this as listing 3 personal superpowers that you call upon. So maybe it's optimism, empathy, a calm presence. How can you nurture or share one this week? So how can you kind of think about that? So you could consider how your core values complement your resilience. So I know a lot of you, again, have done the core values workshop with Meha. So that's a good one if you can kind of think about those core values. And then the other thing you could possibly think of, and some folks were doing this yesterday, what would someone else say about your superpowers? So if you ask someone, what do you think my superpowers are? What might they come up with? Sometimes I also think like, what would my cat say my superpowers are? Probably she would say my superpower is not feeding her on time, but my superpower for her maybe is sitting in the chair and letting her cozy up. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let you work on this prompt. I'll let you kind of, again, see these slides, and we'll play a little bit of music, and then we'll check back in here in just a moment. All right. So I did see a lot of people say coffee. Coffee is the thing that they have relied on to power them forward, that caffeine boost. So I totally get that. I think and some folks were kind of talking about how they weren't quite sure how to answer this, and I think if you think about the fact that you have gotten through 100% of your tough days, right? You are here with us. Maybe there were some really tough times. What helped you get through that? Was it that sense of optimism? Was it music? A lot of times for me, music, especially in my teenage years, was very, very helpful. I would listen to a lot of different songs and think about that, and moving forward. And you know what? If crying and sleeping were the things that powered you through, then absolutely, right? Those are the things. Like, what do you rely on to power you through? What else can help you? Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's looking at powerful quotes, maybe it's been working in your Silk and Sonder journal, um, learning more about yourself, those kinds of things, right? So really kind of think about that. And I know sometimes it's hard for us to self promote, right? A lot of times we are very critical of our own abilities. But just think about that, right? You are here with us. You have powered through, and maybe some of you are powering through some tough times right now, right? Like I found out my position was eliminated after 16 years. And that was in April. And my job was over June 30th, but I found another job and started a new job in August. And I'm so thankful for Silk and Sonder. Really, the work that I've done in that really has helped me know that this too shall pass, right? And what are the things I can focus on? What are the things that I can really hold on to and know that I am going to be moving forward? Yeah, so some people are saying their children, their grandchildren. Sometimes it's a spouse, sometimes it's a friend, and really sometimes it's just can definitely be, it can be challenging, right? But those are the moments when we grow. So I think that is absolutely fine. And if you came in late, if you ever come in late to these socials, don't worry about it, right? We'll kind of help get you caught up. We do have the recordings that we'll share with you later, but we can just like move forward. We just finished the mind map. So, and again, the other thing with this is maybe these questions need deeper thought, and maybe you want to think about that. Maybe you want to think about these all week and write about it. Absolutely, right? We don't give you a ton of time because we've got all these things to kind of move through, but just know that you can take all the time you need to work on these things as you're going forward, right? So we are going to move onto our rosebud thorns. So we want to give a little time to reflect on this previous week. And we have this is on page 36 in your journal. And I like to start with the thorn. So I like to start with the thing that didn't go well, or the thing that's maybe challenging or stressful, something out of your control, something that's maybe a little bit frustrating. And so for me, there has been the gray skies this week. And if you are from Colorado, you know that we're very used to lots of sunshine. And so for me, if I have 2 days of gray skies in a row, I'm like, oh, it's over. The sun has forsaken us. But it's been like that all week. So I've been kind of trying to remind myself that the gray skies and the kind of gray weather helps those yellow and red and orange leaves pop. But that definitely has been something that's been a little, maybe a little challenging for me because I definitely like the sun. A bud is something that maybe could bloom, something you're looking forward to, something that's going to energize you, something that gives you inspiration, something that makes you excited for the future. So a friend of mine is doing her annual Halloween party on Saturday, this coming Saturday. So definitely looking forward to that. I think that will be really fun. There's always lots of good food and it's fun to chat. And sometimes we watch a scary movie, and very fun. And then our rose is something that went well this week, something that made you smile, something that you're grateful for, a positive thing that happened, some sort of a highlight. And so we went to a comedy show on Friday night downtown, and it was really funny. And I have to say, like in stressful times, comedy, that's something that I try to rely on. I know some of you were talking about your sense of humor, right? Humor can really get us through a lot of things. And it was a really funny comedian. Her name was Atsuko. And I probably say her name wrong, but she was actually in Seattle. I think she went there after here, but she's on tour and she's just so, so funny. And it was just so fun to laugh and be in a room with people that were laughing, and very fun. So I will be quiet. I will let you feel free to put in the chat your rosebud, your thorn, and note that sometimes one thing can be all three of those, right? When I was doing, we were remodeling our bedroom, the remodel was really a rosebud and a thorn. Yes. So we are on page 36. I will let you work on that. Feel free to share, and then we will check back here in just a few moments. Thank you for sharing in the chat. And if you'd like, you can keep working on this part, but I did want to show you the currently page because you will see that over on page 39. And we usually have this in the middle of the month, a little bit of time to more reflection, more thinking, and it's kind of that nice snapshot in time. Sometimes people, since there's 3 lines for each thing, sometimes people will like to, they do a beginning of the month on the first line, their middle month on the second line, and then that end of month on the third line. So that's kind of a fun way to do it. Or, you can just kind of fill it in for whatever. So it's that nice little snapshot of kind of like what's going on with you right now. I like to set my alarm on my phone to tell me on the 15th of the month to do this page. So just know that I know, I can't believe we're at the currently page already, but so it's just like currently, what are you loving? Like for me, I am loving the cooler fall weather and the watching the leaves change color. What are you feeling? What are you enjoying? What are you anticipating, wishing, reading, watching, planning? I did just finish a book. One nice thing about my new job is I do have a bit of a commute. It's 30 minutes there and it takes about an hour to get home with the traffic. But I've been able to listen to lots of audiobooks. I think I've finished 5 audiobooks in the last 2 months. And the one I just finished was Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. So I put that on my reading page and it was so cute. It was such a fun little story about in London and folks on a train, and it was just super fun. So this is a great little place to do that. I'll play a brief little song. Again, you can keep working on your Rosebud Thorn, or you can work on page 39, and then we will check back in and keep moving on. All right. Thank you all for sharing in the chat some of the things that you're reading, that you're enjoying. I also really enjoy seeing folks, the rosebud thorn. It's just so nice to kind of spend this time reflecting and remember sometimes all the little details of the days we tend to forget or we gloss over or we remember sometimes only the bad things. So this is always a good opportunity to remind ourselves of the good things, the fun things that we see, the fun things that we're doing. Remember that quote, the days are long, but the years are short. So I like to keep that in mind as I fill out this currently page. So it's fun to be able to look back on this too and remember kind of what was I doing at that time? What was going on? What was I thinking? So let's dive into that weekly planner over on page 40 and 41. What I'll do is I will go over all the different areas on page 40, give you some time to work on those, and then I will go over all the areas on page 41 and give you some time to work on those with this time that we have left. The first thing over on page 40 is you will see this week, I want to feel. I always like to say this is me setting my intention for how I want to show up for the week. So it could be one word. I've given you a lot of different words here. And I know a lot of folks were talking about momentum, and we were kind of talking about momentum with the mind map. And so kind of that moving on. So I would definitely like to feel that momentum of moving forward, making progress, those kinds of things. Here's some examples of things that folks have written and shared with us in Sonder Club: grounded, rested. Some people put a quote in here. Some people will put maybe a Bible verse or an affirmation in here, any of those kinds of, I like that it's okay to go slow, any of those kinds of things, right? So that's your feeling. So really kind of think about what you want your feeling to be. Again, it could be one word. I like them also, like the more or less, more intentional, less frazzled, right? So that's kind of a nice one. Yeah, I think momentum seems to be good because I want to keep moving forward. The other thing I think of with fall is kind of a little bit of a slowing down, right? We're getting ready to winter. We're getting ready to kind of go into that kind of dormant phase. So I want kind of that momentum of like getting everything ready so that I can feel rested and be able to slow down for those months. Underneath that is the weekly major 3 goals. So thinking about 3 goals that you have for the week. And I liked this little quote about resilience is very different than being numb. Resilience means you experience, you feel, you fail, you hurt, you fall, but you keep going. And I thought that was a nice little resilience quote. And Peggy saying she wants to feel serene and focused. I love that. Michelle saying wants to feel passionate about her dreams. So think about that feeling as you go into these goals. What are some goals that can help you have that feeling this week? So maybe you want to go back and look at those intentions you set on page 9, right? Remember, we did that at the beginning of the month, and I always have a feeling to, I always have a tendency to forget to go back and look at those. So you might want to take a look at page 9. Once you set, you might want to look at your monthly habit tracker on page 11 to help you with these goals. Maybe you want to set these goals through that lens of resilience. Maybe you want to set up some no goals, right? So no alcohol or no doom scrolling. Maybe it's no people pleasing, no more than a certain number of minutes on social media, no impulse spending, no takeout meals. Maybe you want to look back at some previous weeks to see some outstanding goals that you want to carry forward, right? Sometimes we set goals for the month or even for the year, and then we just carry those forward each week, right? Maybe you want to frame your goals around some sort of a personal challenge. So maybe you have a fitness challenge with doing some push-ups or some sit-ups or walking a certain number of steps. Maybe you want to set a cleaning or decluttering goal, maybe some self-care, maybe it's a new recipe challenge. I told my husband, I said, let's look at some soup recipes for the week. It's soup time, right? We're moving around from salad and we're going into soup. So finding some new fun recipes or rediscovering an old one that you really like. And I like this little quote too, that there's something so special in the early leaves drifting from the trees, as if we're all allowed a chance to peel, to refresh, and start again. So here's some examples of some goals that folks have set. I like kind of the different areas of focus. Maybe you want to have a left brain, a right brain, and a no brain goal, right? Kind of thinking of those things. I like the one up in the top. It's let go, lean into, or leap into, and then learn. So different kinds of things that they want to look at. Happy, happy and joyous at home, at work, and family. So kind of giving themselves some ideas for things they want to do with that. Supporting how they want to feel. With I will feel more love to feel more lovely, I will. So you could take that feeling. So maybe it's to feel more momentum, I will clean out one of the boxes sitting by my desk, or those kinds of things. I like the buy fresh flowers. Excuse me. Maybe it's some stop lists to don't. um, Different kinds of ways to do that. Meditate, stay positive at work, establish a morning routine. I always say it's a good idea to look at those routines you have, the morning and the evening routines, as the seasons change, to see what kinds of things you might want to change. Right, might want to do things a little different. Right, it's darker in the morning now, so maybe the morning looks a little different. Excuse me. So kind of think about what that looks like with those goals. Then we move over to those to-dos. And I know a lot of folks like the Eisenhower matrix, really kind of thinking of this list of things that they need to do, and then plugging them into the matrix for things that are maybe important and urgent, or they're important but they're not urgent, they're not important but they're urgent, and not important, not urgent. So really kind of thinking about those things we definitely want to do. We want to decide when or how we want to do that. Maybe we want to delegate some things, and maybe we want to drop some things. Maybe we want to delete some things, right? So drop in some things that might be distractions, like that mindless scrolling or procrastination, lack of focus, not using a schedule. Those kinds of things can be really helpful. Here's some examples of things that people have done in their to-do box. We love a good bingo here at Silk and Sonder, and this is a fun way to kind of use this space for like a little mini weekly bingo. It's great for like a cleaning bingo. Somebody has a birthday bingo. Some folks list their morning routines. They have a don't do this and a do this instead, which is a great idea. And I love the little Kermit the Frog meme that says, I made a huge to-do list for today. I just can't figure out who's going to do it. Right? So it'd be nice to be able to delegate some of those things sometimes. Some people have a mind, body, and heart to do. I like to have sometimes a necessary, like I definitely have to do these things, and then delightful, right? So these are things that would be delightful. I can do these things if I if I get the necessary things done, right? So kind of giving myself, if I can do the things I don't want to do, and I can get those done quickly, then I can do maybe some more fun things. And here, maybe you want it, instead of a to-do, maybe it's a to-be list. So maybe you want to think about being forgiving, being considerate, being growth-minded, those kinds of things. So if you repurpose any of these spaces, let us know what you're using some of these different spaces for. And then we can go into our habits and activities, or habities, as I called them one time when I was talking too fast. Uh, so I really like this quote about, anyone who thinks fallen leaves are dead has never watched them dancing on a windy day. I love watching leaves kind of blow around, and it's kind of their last hurrah, kind of this fun idea to do, to see those leaves just kind of blowing around. So here's some examples of things that folks have done. I like the just say no. They have like kind of a theme of just say no. So maybe it's deleting some emails, decluttering, no added sugar, throwing away expired foods, no social media. And then those numbers where it says goals are how many times you want to do that this week. So maybe it's only once or maybe twice. And again, this is a good place to use those October intentions on page 9, or your monthly habit tracker. So your monthly habit tracker, the wheel, is usually the things you want to do every day. And this is more of the things you want to do maybe a few times this week. It's very focused on the week ahead. And I had to include this in here. Jen used it in her setup yesterday, and I thought this was amazing, this cute little calendar of optimistic October. So like today's prompt is look out for positive news and reasons to be cheerful today. So these are, you could always put one of your habit and activity would be to take a look at the optimistic October calendar and see what kind of thing you can do to kind of move forward. So again, screenshots of this so that you can keep these in mind, or again, you can watch the recording later, and I'll cycle through these as you're working on them. Then I also wanted to include, sometimes people don't use this section, right? The habits and activities. They'll put stickers. They were going on vacation, so they just wrote nope across that. Here's a little October bucket list, right? So different kinds of things that you can put in all these sections. So I am going to play some music. I will cycle, oops, I will not go that way. I will cycle through these slides so that you can see them, get some ideas. Feel free to share in the chat. Oh, I love Claire saying she's thinking of making the habities for those work-related goals. So these weekly ones are work-related goals, and then keeping the habit wheel for personal habits. I love, that's a great idea, Claire. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a great way to kind of think about dividing some of these things up and see what that looks like. The great thing about these pages and the weeklies is you can try something out, and if it doesn't work, well, you can change. You got a new week coming, right? So it's a good place to kind of do a little experimenting and see how that works. So I will play a little bit of music. I will let you work on these sections here on page 40, and then we'll check back in and move on to our next page. All right. Thank you for sharing in the chat the different ways that you're using these sections. I think it's so great that so many of you are talking about how much more intentional you feel with your lives now that you've been using Silk and Sonder. And it does really help with setting those intentions, writing things down. The planning piece, I have found that if I plan, and I don't have to plan like every single minute of every single day, but planning things like my dinners, planning what I'm going to pack for lunch for the weekdays for work, planning what I'm going to do after I get off of work, planning my gym visits, planning calls to family and friends, those kinds of things. And using Silk and Sonder to do that really is so helpful for making you feel, or making me feel at least, kind of like I'm being more intentional. I'm getting things accomplished, feeling more connected, those kinds of things. So thank you all so much for sharing that. And I love Jenna's putting there in the chat that you're making that commitment with the most important person in your life, which is you, right? So I think that's something that is so important. Yeah, sometimes the winging it thing doesn't end up very well. I end up doing a lot of scrolling on the phone, watching mindless TV, not really doing anything, and then at the end I feel like so kind of, even if I intentionally set things up for I'm going to spend this day just reading and sipping tea, and I've got it planned out, and then I do it, and then I feel great, right? So yeah, and Radhika is saying her workload's the same, but her attitude is totally different because she's setting up her home and workspaces into zones. That is great. I love that idea. So many great ideas here from the Sonder fam. So we'll move on to page 41, as our facilitator Katie lovingly calls this the B side of the record, right? Sometimes we listen to the B side, sometimes we don't. So this is probably a more heavily repurposed little section to kind of figure out what you need for the week. And isn't this a beautiful picture of like the colors of these foods, the broccoli, the pumpkin, the grapes, everything looks so pretty and colorful. So that meal plan is a lot of real estate there in your journal. So a lot of folks really use this to kind of plan some different things out, and they do something different than planning their meals. You absolutely can use it to plan your meals. You can use it to track your meals, but here's some ideas for things that other folks have done. Maybe you have some health symptoms that you're tracking, you want to keep track of. That's a great place to do that. A daily debrief to remind yourself of kind of what went well that day. Daily scripture, schoolwork, homework, lesson plan reminders, a word of the day, reflections. So they have the glad reflections. So something that they were grateful for, something they learned, something they achieved, and something that delighted them. So that's a fun way to look at that. Here's one of our Sonder fam members, Sierra, had posted this in Sonder Club, the 31 days of introspection in October. So today's day of introspection is values you hold dear, which again goes nicely with kind of our value talk for our mind map and the values workshop that Meha has. So kind of fun ways to kind of look at different things to do for each day. I love the one in the middle, the person who did the beautiful little doodles, their daily creativity prompts. And then they did some working on their lettering and some doodles. Beautiful. So pretty. A little fall scavenger hunt. That's a fun way to do things. Maybe things that you can go and find if you go for a little walk outside, get you outside and some fresh air. Then our mind body health plan. Again, lots of different ways to use this. Some people, they have a love yourself, be quirky, be kind, be patient, be intentional, be mindful, celebrate yourself. One person did something I did well this week, and then some ways I loved others. Again, totally can do a little bingo in there. Excuse me. I have the 7-day hygge challenge, right? It's getting hygge time for some of us when it's cooler. I know some of you dealing with the 90 degrees don't really feel all that hygge-ish, but here's some kind of fun things that you can do for each day. Your shopping list section. So I like the energy takers and energy givers. So thinking about maybe you need some energy givers, maybe you need to pick some things from there. Do a little bingo. Excuse me. No unnecessary spending, right? Wanting to remind themselves, oh, and I see that Tuesday is National Dessert Day, and Wednesday is National Cheese Curd Day. So find those, every day is a national something day. So you could always find those and pop those in there. Making sure you're filling your own cup. What kinds of things are you doing this week to fill your cup? Yeah, and we do, I think it's in, is it next week? No, it's not till November. I think it's the first weekend in November when we do the I think we're still doing daylight saving time. I still don't know here in Colorado if we're doing it or not. But yeah, November 2nd. I think it is happening. But then it falls back. So we get that extra hour, but then it's still dark. So um as you're thinking of the energy givers, right? We are having less hours of sunlight. So thinking about ways to get that vitamin D in. And then there's that little I am loving section, right? So what are you loving this week? And you can, again, fill this out now. You can fill that out in the middle. Maybe you're thinking, I am loving myself by doing this. One person has this beautiful little, they have a, I am loving something in everyday life, something in their relationships and connections, self and growth, sensory joy, and family. So again, a fun little thing to look at. And Jen has popped in the chat the link to the National Day of calendar so you can kind of see what is doing that. Yeah, Monica, the sun going down and it getting darker earlier totally cuts the motivation to do anything after work. I totally hear that. So what I tried to think of is what is something that I would want to do that I don't necessarily want to go outside or have the sunlight for. So I am a big knitter. So I'll be doing, focusing more on knitting, doing my holiday knitting, those kinds of things. But think about maybe some, again, back with maybe that Hygge challenge, right? Maybe you could play a board game or curl up with a book. Alana has some coffee stickers, so that's fun. Stickers are also really great on this page, thinking about our fun stickers. So again, I'm going to be quiet, let you share in the chat what kinds of things you're using these sections for on page 41. Then we'll check back in and we will wrap things up. All right. So, how did we do? Find some ways to use these sections, or again, not use these sections, right? Maybe this section becomes a good place for your stickers to live out their sticker destiny when you put them on the empty spaces and, maybe doodle around them, or just to be able to see your stickers so they're not stuck in a box or stuck in a drawer, those kinds of things, right? So, thank you all so much for being here. This is always the fastest hour. I don't know how it goes by so quickly. Treadmill hours never go by as fast as our Silk and Sonder setups do. So if you feel so inclined, we would love to have you share your weekly planner in the Silk and Sonder in our it's in Sonder Club in the app. We love to see that. Yes, Carla, I know it's like such a fast hour. I always look at the clock 3 or 4 times to make sure I'm looking at it right. Like, is it really over? It is. Um, and you can see all the examples that we show here are from real life Silk and Sonder members. They are not AI created, they are HI created, right? Human intelligence. And we have such fabulous Sonder Club members, and again, so much creativity and so much fun. So we love seeing the things that you post. It's so fun to see. Just a quick reminder, we have about the exclusive event that we have coming up. So just Jen's going to pop in the link for that. Again, remember, if you sign up for it and you're not able to attend, you do get the link in an email that you're able to watch later. So I think that will be definitely an interesting session for sure. And then also don't forget that there is Bailey is hosting the In Real Life Nashville event November 1st, I think it is. And I think Jen will pop in some info about that as well. If you haven't tried our uh, life map, our personalized life coaching app, we have some information about that where you can sign up. So lots of fun things going on, lots of things for us to do. And I am so glad that you spent some time with us this morning, setting up those pages, feeling good about going into your week. I think planning sometimes is the most important part, just spending that little bit of time planning things out, and then you feel so much more ready to take on your week. It's not quite such a surprise, right? So thank you all so much for joining us this morning. We will see you again hopefully soon. Take care, everyone.